Rain drenched the torn suitcase that 19-year-old Lily Parker clutched to her chest as her stepmother's voice echoed through the doorway. Get out and never come back. With nowhere to go and no one to call, the poor girl stumbled into the storm, her dreams drowned beneath thunder and tears. Hours later, shivering beneath a flickering streetlight, she nearly collided with a sleek black car, and behind its tinted glass sat Ethan Cole, the ruthless billionaire CEO everyone feared yet secretly envied. Their worlds were never meant to meet, but fate had other plans. Why would a billionaire stop for a girl tossed aside like dirt? And what could a poor girl like Lily possibly do for him that would shock everyone? The night air bit through Lily Parker's thin sweater as she trudged along the empty street, the soles of her worn shoes slapping weakly against puddles. Her stepmother's voice still rang in her ears, sharp as shattered glass. You're nothing but a burden, Lily. Your father left nothing for you, now get out. Those words had chased her from the only home she knew, leaving her with a single suitcase filled with clothes too small and memories too heavy. The rain poured harder, cold and merciless. Streetlights flickered above, casting long shadows that danced across cracked sidewalks. Lily's breath came out in shaky clouds, and for a moment she thought about turning back, but there was nothing to go back to. Inside that house were bitter stares, slammed doors, and a woman who saw her as a mistake. She had dreamed once of college, of designing dresses, of seeing her name on something beautiful. But dreams didn't keep you warm when you had nowhere to sleep. She stopped under a broken bus shelter, clutching her suitcase to her chest, shivering. Water dripped down her hair and into her eyes. A bus passed, splashing muddy water across her legs, but she didn't flinch. Her body was there. Her mind was somewhere else, remembering her father's smile, the way he'd promised. You'll never be alone, sweetheart, but now, she was more alone than she'd ever been. A distant hum of an engine echoed down the street. Headlights cut through the rain, slicing across her face. She blinked and stepped back, afraid the car wouldn't stop. But instead of speeding past, the sleek black vehicle slowed, rolling to a stop right in front of her. The tinted window slid down with a soft electronic hum. Inside, a man sat in a charcoal suit, eyes shadowed under the soft glow of the dashboard lights. His features were sharp, high cheekbones, clean jawline, and eyes that carried the kind of cold that could freeze fire. Ethan Cole. His name alone made boardrooms go silent. Billionaire CEO, media tycoon, ruthless negotiator, a man born with power and the hunger to keep it. He studied her for a long moment, his voice low and commanding. You shouldn't be out here at this hour. Where are your parents? Lily swallowed hard. I don't have anywhere to go, she whispered, barely audible over the rain. He frowned slightly, glancing at her soaked clothes and trembling hands. She looked like a ghost wandering through a storm. Something in her eyes, fear, pain, or maybe quiet defiance, caught him off guard. He didn't believe in chance meetings, but this one felt different. Get in, he said finally. Lily's heart pounded. Sir, I can't. You'll freeze to death if you stay out here, he cut in, his tone more businesslike than kind. I'm not asking twice. For a moment she hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, but she was too cold, too tired, too desperate to care. Slowly she opened the back door and slid inside. Warm air from the car's heater wrapped around her like a blanket. The leather seats were softer than any bed she'd slept in. Ethan didn't speak as he drove. The rain drummed against the windows, a rhythm that matched the silence between them. Lily glanced at his reflection in the rearview mirror. He looked composed, unreadable, like someone who'd never known hunger, loss, or fear. She wondered why a man like that would stop for someone like her. Finally, his voice broke through the quiet. You're not from around here, are you? She shook her head. No, sir. Name? Lily. Lily Parker. He gave a small nod as if committing it to memory. Ethan Cole, she already knew. Everyone knew his name. His face was on billboards, business magazines, and television screens. The kind of man people admired from afar but never met in real life. When the car pulled into the glowing driveway of a tall glass mansion, Lily's breath caught. The house looked like something out of a dream. Massive windows, sleek steel lines, golden lights spilling through the rain. Come in, Ethan said simply. I can't, she started, clutching her suitcase. You can. You're dripping water all over my car, he said, his voice flat but not unkind. Inside, the warmth hit her instantly. Marble floors, expensive art, a chandelier that glittered like captured lightning. Everything screamed wealth, and she felt like an intruder in someone else's world. Ethan handed her a towel. Dry off. I'll have someone prepare a guest room. She blinked, stunned. You're letting me stay here? For tonight, he replied. Until you figure out where you're going next. Something in his tone told her not to ask for more. Still, gratitude welled in her chest. She nodded, unable to speak. As she disappeared down the hallway with a maid, Ethan stood at the window, watching the rain wash over the glass. He didn't know why he'd stopped. He never did things without reason. Yet something about that girl, the look in her eyes, the quiet strength in her voice, unsettled him. He didn't know it yet. But that one act of kindness would soon turn his world upside down. And for Lily Parker, the poor girl thrown out by her stepmother, this was only the beginning of a story that would shock everyone. The first morning in Ethan Cole's mansion felt unreal to Lily Parker. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off polished marble floors. The faint hum of distant traffic reminded her she was still in the same world, but a different life altogether. She sat up slowly, wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. For the first time in years, she'd slept without fear of her stepmother's yelling, or the chill of hunger gnawing through the night. She slipped out of bed, her bare feet sinking into the thick carpet, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her hair was tangled, eyes puffy from crying, and the old sweater she wore still bore the faded tear from last night's storm. She looked out of place here like a forgotten sketch on a masterpiece canvas. Downstairs, Ethan sat at the long breakfast table, scrolling through his tablet. He was dressed sharply in a gray suit, already surrounded by the quiet efficiency of his world. Assistants coming and going, phones buzzing, coffee steaming. He barely looked up as Lily approached. "Morning," she said softly. He glanced up. "You look better." "Thank you. For letting me stay." Ethan nodded curtly. "Eat something." A maid placed a tray before her, eggs, fruit, warm croissants. Lily hesitated. The sight of so much food made her throat tighten. She'd gone entire days surviving on scraps and tea. Ethan noticed her hesitation. "You're allowed to eat," he said dryly. She smiled faintly. Old habits, he studied her again. There was something unusual about her, something unpolished yet captivating. Most people in his world pretended. Lily didn't. Her vulnerability wasn't an act. It was the truth written on her face. Between bites, she spoke quietly. "You didn't have to stop for me last night." "I know," he said, setting down his coffee cup. "But I did." She tilted her head. "Why?" For a moment, his mask slipped. He looked at her, really looked at her. The girl who'd lost everything but still had softness in her voice. "I don't know," he said truthfully. "Maybe I saw something familiar." She didn't understand what he meant, but she didn't press. After breakfast, Ethan's driver offered to take her to a shelter, but she hesitated. "Could I maybe work here?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I can clean, cook, anything. I just don't want to be a burden." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. "You're not a maid. I'm not asking to be one. I just need a chance." Something about the determination in her eyes reminded him of his younger self. Hungry for survival, desperate to prove worth in a world that dismissed weakness. Finally, he said, "Fine, the housekeeper needs an assistant. Talk to her." The days that followed turned into quiet rhythms. Lily worked diligently, folding sheets, watering plants, organizing books in the grand library. She never complained, never slacked. The staff began to like her gentle nature and warm smile. She often hummed while cleaning, her voice light and soothing, filling the cold mansion with an unfamiliar softness. Ethan noticed. He tried not to. Late one evening, he walked past the piano room and froze. Lily sat there, her fingers brushing softly across the keys. The melody was simple, delicate, yet carried a sadness that lingered. She didn't see him standing in the shadows watching her. For the first time in years, he felt something stir, an ache he'd buried beneath ambition and wealth. He remembered being 16, playing for his mother before she died, before his father hardened him into the man the world called a billionaire. Maybe that was the familiarity he'd seen in Lily's eyes, loss wrapped in quiet strength. When the music faded, he stepped forward. Lily jumped, startled. "Mr. Cole, I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "You play well," he interrupted. Her cheeks flushed. "I used to. My father taught me before he—" She stopped herself, he nodded. "Before life happened," she smiled faintly. "Yes." A beat of silence hung between them. "You don't belong in the shadows, Lily," he said softly. "You have something people spend fortunes trying to fake." She blinked. "What's that?" "Heart." Before she could respond, he turned and left, his footsteps echoing down the marble corridor. That night, Lily sat by her window, staring at the city lights below. She didn't know why he'd said that or why it mattered so much, but for the first time since her father's death, she felt seen. Ethan, meanwhile, couldn't focus on his work. Every deal, every meeting, every phone call felt dull. His mind kept drifting back to the girl who had nothing, but somehow made his world feel alive again. He found himself asking his assistant to schedule lighter days. He started eating breakfast at home. Sometimes he'd pass through the hall just to hear her humming, but not everyone in the mansion was pleased. Veronica Steele, Ethan's longtime business partner and rumored fiancée, noticed the change. One evening she arrived unannounced, heels clicking sharply against the marble. She saw Lily arranging flowers near the staircase and sneered. "Who's the stray?" Veronica asked coldly. Lily froze. I work here. Do you know?" Veronica's lips curled. "Ethan's getting soft." Before Lily could respond, Ethan entered the room. His eyes hardened when he saw Veronica's smirk. "Enough." "Really, Ethan?" she said. "You're sheltering a homeless girl now? That's beneath you." His tone dropped, icy and final. "Watch your mouth," Veronica faltered. She'd never heard him speak with such edge. Lily stood silent, heart pounding. She'd seen pity before, but never protection. Veronica glanced between them, eyes narrowing. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. This will end badly." She turned on her heel and left. When the door shut, Lily whispered, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause—" "You didn't," Ethan said, his jaw tight. "People like her think kindness is weakness. But you were kind to me." He looked at her, the faintest trace of a smile in his eyes. "Maybe that's the first mistake I've made in years." Neither of them knew how right or how wrong he was, because what Lily would soon do for him would shake everything they both thought they knew about love, loyalty, and power. The weeks that followed transformed the mansion from a cold empire of glass into something faintly human. Lily Parker had become more than a quiet presence. She was a rhythm, a gentle force that softened the edges of Ethan Cole's hardened world. He found himself listening for her laughter echoing down the halls, the subtle melody she hummed when she thought no one was around, the calm she brought into rooms that once only echoed with his loneliness. Ethan was changing, though he refused to admit it. His board noticed his absences, his sudden disinterest in ruthless takeovers, the warmth that crept into his tone. For a man whose empire thrived on precision and control, emotions were liabilities. Yet every time Lily looked at him with those wide, grateful eyes, something inside him shifted, an emotion he couldn't price or suppress. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rolled beyond the tall windows, Ethan returned home early from a tense meeting. He found Lily in the garden courtyard, kneeling beside a wilted rosebush. Her hair clung damply to her cheeks as she carefully trimmed the dead petals. "You shouldn't be out in the rain," he said, stepping closer. She smiled faintly. They were dying. Sometimes all they need is a little care to bloom again. He watched her, how she spoke of flowers as though she were talking about people. "You sound like you've done that before," he said. "I've had to," she murmured, not looking up. When life keeps cutting you down, you learn to grow again, even if it hurts. Something about her words hit him harder than he expected. He crouched down beside her. "You really think people can bloom again after that?" She turned to meet his gaze. "You did." The words froze him. No one ever spoke to him that way. Not his employees, not Veronica, not anyone. No one dared to see him past the billionaire facade, the man beneath the marble and money. But Lily had. He wanted to say something, to deflect, to retreat into the armor of indifference. Instead, he found himself asking, "Why do you care?" Her eyes softened. "Because someone once cared for me when I didn't deserve it. My father, and because I see something in you, something lonely." Ethan stood abruptly as if the truth had cornered him. "You don't know me," he said, more defensively than he intended. Lily looked down, voice barely a whisper. "Maybe not, but I know what it feels like to hide behind walls." He left before she could see the emotion in his eyes. That night, Ethan sat alone in his study, staring at a framed photo of his late mother. She had been the only one who ever told him that wealth meant nothing without warmth. He'd buried that lesson under decades of ambition. Now, a girl with nothing had somehow unearthed it again. But storms, even the gentle ones, attract thunder. 2 days later, the tabloids exploded with headlines. Ethan Cole's mystery maiden is the billionaire CEO in love with a nobody. Paparazzi photos flooded the internet. Lily carrying flowers through the mansion gates, Ethan walking beside her. The story painted her as a gold digger, an opportunist preying on the world's most eligible CEO. When Ethan's PR team confronted him, Veronica was there, arms crossed, eyes sharp with victory. "I warned you," she said, her tone dripping with venom. "You've let a poor girl tarnish your reputation." Ethan's voice was ice. Enough, but Veronica wasn't done. "She'll ruin you, Ethan. She's using you for shelter, attention, sympathy. You're too blind to see it." He slammed his hand on the desk. "Get out," Veronica smirked, leaning close. "You'll regret this. You always do when you lead with your heart." She left, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. Ethan called for Lily immediately. She entered his office timidly, already sensing something was wrong. The air felt heavy, tense. "Did you talk to anyone outside? Reporters? Photographers?" Ethan asked sharply, her eyes widened. "No, I swear I didn't." He paced the room, running a hand through his hair. "Someone's leaking stories. They think you're—" He stopped, unwilling to say the word. She stepped forward, voice trembling. "They think I'm what?" He looked at her then, really looked. Her face pale and frightened, eyes glistening with tears she tried to hold back. "They think you're using me," he said finally, softer now. Her lip quivered. "You think that too?" "No," he said quickly. "But I can't protect you if this keeps spreading, my world." "It's cruel, Lily. It destroys people like you." She blinked back tears. "Then maybe I don't belong in your world." Silence hung between them like shattered glass. Ethan exhaled heavily. "Lily, I get it," she said, forcing a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You gave me shelter. I shouldn't have expected more." She turned to leave, but he caught her wrist gently. "Lily, please. Don't walk away like that." She looked at him with a broken kind of grace. "You said I had heart, Ethan, but even hearts can't survive where they're not wanted." And then she was gone, out the door, into the rain again. The same storm that had brought her into his life. Ethan stood motionless, her absence echoing louder than any storm outside. For the first time in years, he felt powerless, not from losing a deal or a rival, but from losing someone who made him feel human. That night, his mansion felt colder than ever. Every room carried a memory of her laughter. Every corner whispered her name. But what Ethan didn't know was that Lily wasn't gone forever. Because fate, once it ties two lost souls together, has a way of circling back. And what Lily was about to do next for the man who once saved her would not only shock everyone, it would change both their lives forever. The storm outside had quieted by the time Ethan Cole realized what he'd lost. Days bled into nights, and the mansion that once buzzed with quiet warmth turned hollow again. The scent of fresh flowers had vanished. The piano sat untouched. Even the air felt heavier, like the walls themselves mourned her absence. He buried himself in work, returning to the man he once was, sharp, cold, efficient. But it didn't work this time. Every file he read, every meeting he led, every dollar he earned felt meaningless. His empire was intact, but his heart was in ruins. Then one evening, as the city lights shimmered through the rain-streaked windows, his driver entered the office. "Sir," he said, hesitating, "you might want to see this." He handed Ethan a folded newspaper. On the front page was a headline that made his heart stop. "Homeless Outreach Initiative expands. Young woman inspires. Hope across the city." The photo showed Lily Parker standing beside a banner that read the Bloom Foundation. Her hands were covered in paint, her clothes simple, her smile radiant. The caption below read, "Founder Lily Parker, once homeless herself, now helps displaced women find shelter, training, and jobs." Ethan's chest tightened. She'd taken her pain and turned it into something powerful. She hadn't disappeared, she'd bloomed. He read the article twice, then grabbed his coat and left. The foundation was small, set in a converted warehouse on the edge of downtown. Inside, women worked together, sorting donated clothes, preparing meals, laughing in a way that reminded him of something real. At the far end of the room, Lily stood beside a row of new beds, speaking softly to a group of young mothers. Her voice carried that same warmth he'd missed. When she turned and saw him, her breath caught. The room fell quiet. "Ethan," she whispered, as if saying his name might break something fragile. He stepped closer, rain dripping from his coat. "I read about what you've done." Lily looked down, her hands twisting nervously. "It's nothing big, just something I wanted to do." "It's everything," he said. "You took what the world threw at you and made it beautiful." She smiled faintly, the same shy curve that had once melted his walls. "You once said I had heart. I just wanted to prove you were right." Ethan's voice softened. "You did more than that. You reminded me what it means to be human." For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of life filled the space between them. Children laughing, footsteps echoing, a door creaking open somewhere in the back. It was the sound of hope, the kind he'd forgotten existed. "I shouldn't have let you go," he said finally. "I let fear speak for me." Lily met his gaze. "Fear makes us do strange things, but maybe it also leads us where we're meant to be." He nodded slowly. "I thought I was saving you that night, Lily. But I see now you were saving me." Her eyes shimmered with tears. She tried to blink away. "Ethan." He stepped closer, the distance between their worlds closing with every heartbeat. "Come back," he said softly. "Not to the mansion, to me. I don't care what the world says. You belong where you're loved, not where you're perfect." She hesitated, searching his face for the man she'd once believed in, and found him there, raw and unguarded. But before she could answer, a voice interrupted them. "Mr. Cole?" It was Veronica Steele. She stood at the doorway, her expression unreadable. "I came to deliver the new partnership papers," she said coolly, holding out a folder. "But I can see I'm interrupting something." Ethan turned, his tone calm but final. "Yes, you are." Veronica's eyes flicked between them. "So it's true. You're throwing away your name, your company for her?" He didn't flinch. "For once in my life, I'm doing something real." Veronica scoffed. "She's beneath you." Lily stepped forward then, her voice steady. "Maybe, but even people beneath deserve kindness." Veronica's smirk faltered. She turned sharply and left, heels clicking against the tile like an ending punctuation. When the door shut, Ethan exhaled and looked at Lily again. "You were right," he said quietly. "Sometimes people just need a little care to bloom again." Her eyes softened, a tear slipping free. "So do you." He reached out and took her hand gently this time, like a promise. The world outside still raged with noise and judgment, but in that small, bright space, surrounded by the women Lily had saved, Ethan found peace. Weeks later, the Bloom Foundation expanded with Ethan's financial backing, but he refused to take credit. Every interview, every press release carried the same line from him. "She built this from heart. I only helped water the roots." Lily continued her work tirelessly. She greeted every woman who walked through those doors with warmth, telling them, "You're not broken. You're just waiting to bloom." And every time she said it, she glanced at Ethan across the room, smiling at the man who had once stopped his car for a lost girl in the rain. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, Ethan joined her in the courtyard garden behind the foundation. Rows of roses, her favorite, bloomed under the golden light. "Do you remember the first time you saw these?" she asked softly. "I remember you saving them," he said, "and I remember thinking you were one of them." She laughed lightly. "A rose?" he smiled. "No, something rarer, something that survives every storm." Lily leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "You know," she whispered, "if my stepmother hadn't thrown me out that night, I never would have met you." Ethan kissed her forehead gently. "Then maybe the worst night of your life was just the start of something beautiful." They stood there, hand in hand as the wind carried the scent of new blossoms across the air, proof that even the broken can rise. Even the lost can find home, and even a poor girl thrown out by her stepmother could meet a billionaire CEO and change his world forever. And what she did for him, turning pain into purpose, loneliness into love, shocked everyone.